Hi, I'm Gigi Duban, and on this episode of Alabama Inc., we go way back to season 1. We find out what our favorite characters are up to now. Ah, mais oui, bien sûr! Pat Duggins catches up with Caroline Myers, president of Foreign Language Services, a company that translates 80 languages. And Richard Burton's back to talk dollar bills with Josh and how not to squander it all. Solid gold tips coming your way. It's coming up on Alabama Inc. In the first season of our show, we met up with some cool people who had real problems. Jackie Smith ran a coffee shop in Selma, but wasn't sure she'd be able to keep it afloat. Michael Brandon drove a food truck that wasn't exactly welcome in Birmingham. And the folks at Charlemagne Records were stuck in the past. We caught up with all three to find out what they're doing now. Back in season 1, we stopped by Charlemagne Records. It's one of those places people just like to pop in and browse. The staff prides itself on knowing what a customer might like, better than some algorithm on iTunes or Amazon. But to say Charlemagne hadn't jumped into the digital age is an understatement. In fact, they preferred phone over email, in-person interactions over the phone. And that sort of hurt them. Jubal Delzell still works there. Jubal, what's going on?
Hey, what's happening? How's it
It's
going?
been a while since
It's been a while. I know.
What's new around here?
Everybody wants vinyl. That's what's new.
Everybody. What? I was going to say, what is this?
Everybody and their brother wants vinyl records. Have come back, and
People are still coming in buying
that's what
these
they want.
things.
Yes, now more than ever.
So I remember last time we caught up with you, we were talking a lot about having an online presence, and when we were here last,
Yeah.
you didn't have much of an online presence.
Yeah. Well, since then we started a Facebook page, and we've got about 1,800 likes. We have about 1,800 followers, and
Wow.
we just try to keep our name in people's mind. So it might just be one day, it might just be a picture of a musician, and the next day it might be a video from YouTube, or it might be, hey, next week we've got the new Jack White coming out, or just so that every day or every other day that people go, hey, Charlemagne's still there, Charlemagne's still, just letting people know it. You know, it's not specifically just to sell records, but just so that they, even if they're not coming by 5 Points every day or every week, that they know that we're still here and we're still selling music.
Since then, they've built up an online presence, and it's paying off. It's even boosting sales.
Since then, we've also started an Amazon account and an eBay account for high-end records that might not sell in the store, but if you get some of the more collectible ones that are $100 or above, it might be a little easier to sell them online.
How's your seller rating?
I think it's pretty good. I don't know exactly what it is. I know on Amazon we have 5 stars, and I think eBay is pretty good too. I think we got 5 stars or whatever the rating is on there. So yeah, so we've done pretty good on that.
As for Jimmy, the guy who had an encyclopedic knowledge of music, he retired. He still stops in every now and then. In the meantime, the shop is doing just fine. Just ask their hundreds of fans on Facebook. Remember Chef Michael Brandon? He ran the Spoon-Fed Grill food truck in downtown Birmingham. Well, he's since gone to the burbs. He's also given his truck a facelift. Brandon teamed up with the folks at Saw's Barbecue to launch Saw's Street Kitchen, his newest food truck venture. All right, so Michael, what do we got today? You got a new truck.
New truck, same truck, new wrap, new dress.
Yeah.
Saw's Street Kitchen.
It was a pretty big crowd out here, like before 11 o'clock.
Before 11 o'clock is a pretty big crowd. We're getting used to it. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, we're out here at an office park, which is way different than where we caught up with you last time in the middle of downtown Birmingham.
Downtown was the beginning of the mobile food truck business. We kind of went where everybody was centered. 5 years into it, just like anything, it's evolved, and some of the other businesses outside of the city have caught wind of the mobile food truck movement.
He still gets to be his own boss, work the menu to his liking. And he says working with Saw's, a successful barbecue chain, has its advantages.
One restaurant might have fried okra with a sauce that they're using in their restaurant. I do a fried pickled okra.
Yeah, so you can put your own Chef Michael Brandon spin on it.
That's right. We have the deviled egg BLT. We've got that nobody else has. So they'll go to another restaurant and they say they want that. The best thing is that each one of the restaurants support the other restaurant. So they'll say, well, we don't do that here, but that's why we're glad that you're visiting that other outlet.
Okay. As for food trucks in Birmingham, it's still an uneasy truce. The city finally adopted an ordinance that put heavy restrictions on where and when food trucks could operate.
That's right. There's time parameters and distance, of which, 2 or 3 years ago, we were kind of up in arms about in the community.
Yeah.
I think that everybody's nerves have been calmed. It's a part of the system now, and the city has got some really good representatives that are working with us hand in hand. So far, the process has been pretty good for us.
When we first went to see her in Selma, Jackie Smith hadn't had her coffee shop very long. Business wasn't great, and at that point, she wasn't sure her shop would survive. Now, things seem to be looking up. So Jackie, it's nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you again as well. Thanks for coming back.
All right, glad to. How's things been?
Things have been well.
Yeah?
It's been well.
How's business been?
Business is good. We're past the honeymoon, and we still have a very loyal customer base. So at 2.5 years, that's very important, and that's a very big positive.
And I think when we came to see you, you were probably in the, where would you say you were last time?
Just past the honeymoon.
Yeah.
Just past the honeymoon. Struggling when you were here last.
I remember.
Big time. Struggling. Still so much for me to learn about the coffee shop. I actually now look back and reflect and say, you know what? The last time Gigi was here, I wasn't running the coffee shop, it was running me.
Yeah.
So I've learned so much in terms of how to manage, front end, back end. So now I'm confident that we'll be here.
She's the first to admit that early on, she was completely overwhelmed. But focusing on being more efficient and keeping costs down has gone a long way.
And a lot of it was heart. I was managing with my heart and not my head. We all started together, and in my heart, there was a loyalty that I needed to keep everybody and try to keep everybody hours up. And then it just got to a point that, I had to make some really business decisions.
Maybe not quite as popular.
Not quite as popular, but, sustainability.
Jackie is still really passionate about her coffee shop. Now, it's almost like the business is on autopilot, which is just where she'd hoped to be by now. Coming up next on Alabama Inc.
We actually do over 80 languages. Now, don't ask me to name them all, but we've actually counted.
One time I wrote an article for the biggest news magazine in China about the space shuttle. Now before you ask, I don't write in Chinese. I had it translated. Caroline Myers with Foreign Language Services out of Huntsville does that very same job. And here's how she got from here to there. Okay, Caroline, true story. Mrs. Duggins, my wife, studied French abroad, and she wound up in Paris, in Neuchâtel, in Nice. I understand your big adventure was Dijon.
It was Dijon.
How was that?
It was wonderful. I spent my junior year abroad there at the Université de Dijon, It really led to, I think, my doing what I do today, although as a precursor to that, I did teach French for 5 years before Judy and I started the business.
So the little library that we're in here right now is just like full of language books of different stripes. What exactly languages do you all do?
We actually do over 80 languages. Now, don't ask me to name them all, but we've actually counted at one time because people ask us that all the time. But of course, the majority of the work we do are in the major languages, and that means all the European languages, the Asian languages, and the Middle Eastern languages. But we do work in all 80, and these books behind me and all over are both course books but also dictionaries. And there was a time that we really depended on the dictionary, the actual book, to open and research terminology. But of course now it's pretty much gone to the internet in terms of all the dictionaries we have on our computer. But we still come in, grab those books from time to time, and dictionaries basically, and look up what it is that we need to verify in a translation.
You mentioned that your hiring process includes finding people who are bilingual and obviously useful languages for different clients. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, you put an ad in the paper, hey, if you speak Japanese, come and see me, or how did you do that?
We really we rely on, first of all, referrals, and that's because we've built it up over the years that we have a wonderful nucleus of translators. And so if I go to a translator and say, I need you to do this engineering manual, and that person looks at it and says, really not my field, the next thing I say is, well, do you know of anyone that you've worked with that you can refer me to? I want a certain amount of experience that the translator has. I want either a degree, certainly the bilingual ability, but also the credential that they've actually passed tests saying that they know how to translate. They have been proven to be a good translator.
Because I was just saying, being fluent in a language doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good translator.
You know, and that is something that we battle on a constant basis. We get calls probably on a weekly basis that say, well, my neighbor down the street translated this, but I need you to just look it over and certify it for me. And so Lauren, who handles our walk-in jobs, she says very nicely, well, one of our professional translators will have to verify that, and you might as well have us retranslate it because we're going to charge you as if that were the case.
Now, I'll preface this next question by saying that you've been in the business here for 30 years, so you are uniquely positioned to answer this. I'm sure everybody says, well, the arrival of Mercedes 20 years ago or whatever was absolutely the floodgate on foreign participation in business and that sort of thing in Alabama, and then along came all the other automakers. What was it like for the translation business, or how much business did you have before Mercedes came?
You know, it was kind of a real dividing point for us. Before Mercedes came, now I'm going back to the 80s, really showing my age, and we're actually 35 years old. There was a lot of work with DOD, with the government, with the Air Force, the Army, and it basically was because we were kind of still in that Cold War, the Iron Curtain hadn't come down, the Berlin Wall hadn't come down. And we did a lot of Russian during that time. We also did a lot of other military journals, so a lot of defense work. And somewhere then, about the time that Mercedes came, we really did have to look around for other work, because suddenly that kind of DOD work kind of dried up all of a sudden for us. It was one of those lessons that you learn. Don't put your eggs all in one basket in terms of who your clients are. Don't just have government clients. So yes, Mercedes came and we immediately got calls from them. We started working for them almost immediately, and also supplying in-house interpreters and their suppliers. Their suppliers were also coming into Alabama at a great rate. And some of them were actually Japanese companies, some of them were German companies, and so we were getting calls from them as well. Other Japanese companies, Toyota of course came, and Honda came. And on and on. They're still coming.
Okay, Caroline, let's go ahead and preface everything by starting off here with the phrase, the only French that I know is "Je ne parle pas beaucoup français." So in other words, I don't know much of anything here. So for this particular client, what did you do for them?
Well, they first gave us an English brochure, or actually it was a manual. So they wanted us to translate it into French for Canada, by the way. We did the translation, we did the proof, we did the edit, we sent it back to the customer. And a month and a half later, got some very good feedback, great translation, but there are just a few terms that we need you to change that we would prefer.
We were talking earlier, and apparently one of the words that your client wanted to change was the word bucket. So for someone like me, how many ways do you say bucket in French?
Well, you can say it several different ways. You know, just like we might say a vessel versus a bucket.
Or a pail.
Or a pail, exactly. So that is, I think, the most important thing about what, as an agency and as a bureau, that we do is verify the accuracy, and we proof and we edit and we proof again to make sure that everything is done exactly how the client would expect. And again, we're speaking for them, so it's very important that we do that.
Coming up next on Alabama Inc.
I have all my money tied up in Legos right now.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay, see, now that's why you're here.
Each week on Alabama Inc., we bring in one of our show experts to talk with correspondent Josh Snead. Our expert gives Josh a top 5 list. Now, Richard Burton's back from Burton & Associates, and he lays out how to keep your money from slipping away. Tales from the bankruptcy side.
Get off Amazon and put the credit card down, because we all know you probably can't afford it anyway, right? Well, lucky for you, our favorite lawyer, Richard Burton from Burton & Associates, is back today to give us 5 tips on money management, because we all know you'd probably rather be taking a hot air balloon to work, right? Well, it's all today on the Alabama Inc. Countdown. All right, Richard, welcome back.
Glad to be back.
I've actually got something very special for you. No, we don't. I'm lying. We don't have any money for that. So what we're doing today, money mistakes?
Absolutely, yeah. Top 5 money mistakes or money management mistakes, yeah.
Okay, all right. First one, number 5.
All right, we're going to talk about overspending. And this is essentially just exactly what it sounds like. You're making $3,000 a month, but you're spending, $3,200 or $3,300 a month. Some of my clients, it's not an issue of them not making enough money. Yeah. I have a tax client that the husband and wife are both doctors, and they both make north of $250,000 a year.
Right.
And so
because they think, well, I'm doctors, I got to have this house and this car, and then
yeah, they each buy Starbucks coffee every morning, and et cetera, and you start to realize, hey, maybe you could make some coffee at home.
Yeah.
But you just need to have a good understanding of money in and money out. Where you're actually spending your money each month.
Okay, number 4, what do you got?
Okay, this not having an emergency fund or not making use of an emergency fund. Let's say your expenses are $3,000 a month. Like that's what it costs you to live. Pay your rent, pay your car payment, pay your insurance, et cetera. An emergency fund basically should represent 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So, $3,000 a month, you need at least $9,000 to $10,000 in an emergency fund.
Just for, yeah.
And
plus you never know when a midlife crisis is going to kick in. You need to impulse buy a motorcycle.
Yeah, or you lose your job and it takes you 3 to 6 months before you get another job. So if you've got 3 to 6 months of expenses set back, then immediately
you got a little buffer.
You're good. You're not losing your job and next week you're broke and you're out of money.
Do you suggest like putting in a savings account or
you want this just
putting it under the mattress or
what? Well, either way, but you want it somewhere where it's easily accessible. You don't want this tied up in the stock market.
I have all my money tied up in Legos right now.
Yeah, that's probably that's a problem.
Okay, see now that's why you're here.
Yeah.
All right, so next one, number 3.
Number 3 is essentially that more money will not fix your money problems.
Okay, so you're like a big raise in salary, or you come into some inheritance, something like that?
Most people think that if I could just make more money, I mean, how many times have you ever heard people, man, if I could just get a raise, if I could just, and it's always, if you're a poor money manager, a great example is on average, professional athletes declare bankruptcy 2 years after they retire from their sport.
I've heard that, yeah.
You get drafted, by the Knicks. Now all of a sudden, I can go buy myself a $2 million home, my mama, my daddy, and next thing you know, that $20 million signing bonus is gone.
Dang.
And that's generally what happens with professional athletes.
I'm just buying helicopters and smashing them into each other.
And so,
Don't ever let me get $2 million, is what I'm saying.
More money means that you have nicer things, but you still have the same problems.
Yeah, so you're what you're saying is mo money, mo problems.
Essentially.
All your bullet points, are they all going to be rap lyrics? Is that, no? Okay, we can move on. All right, number 2.
Number 2 is going to be basically knowing the difference between good debt and bad debt.
Okay. Give me an example of each. Like
Okay.
good debt.
Good debt, generally speaking, would be student loan debt. So you're going to go into debt to go to college, but yet that's going to increase your earning potential.
Unless you majored in ceramics.
Right, there are exceptions. The College of Arts would be one of those exceptions. But
Thank you.
no, but
This is my 3rd job. I have to leave here and do landscaping, so thank you.
Yeah,
You're correct.
but yeah, those are generally speaking. Good debt is something that potentially will actually increase that you can sell down the road and get a return on investment.
What's so bad debt?
Well, I mean, bad debt is anything that's high interest, credit card, payday loans.
Do you stay away from credit cards yourself? Like
Well, you want to pay those balances off at the end of the month.
Immediately, yeah.
I mean, I have credit cards. I try diligently to just pay that off at the end of the month, and then
Yeah.
you never pay any interest.
Okay. All right. Here it is.
Number
1.
not having a budget.
Okay.
And this is basically ties in with what we've been saying all along, but essentially without actually knowing what you're spending money on every month. A, you don't know how much you're spending every month, and B, you can't see where the money's going. Right. So we can't decide where to make cuts.
So at that point, do you like suggest this is the type of stuff you need to cut out? Maybe you don't need to go to the strip club every Thursday. Is this when you jump in and you like try to give
Yeah.
life lessons to people?
Well, part of it is counseling, and part of it is also getting a budget so that people see the money that is going out.
You suggest kind of getting like a Quicken or something where they can see all their.
Yeah, this is what I use.
Okay.
Literally, that's a monthly budget.
Oh, okay. So
Everything you could possibly spend money on is listed right there.
okay.
I would say entertainment instead of strip club.
And then you
but it's listed.
It is listed.
Now this is going downhill quick. So
Okay.
it's-
That's our show for this week. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Keep up with the stories we're working on and tell us what you think. I'm Gigi Duban, and we'll see you next time on Alabama Inc.